This is our 29-gallon tall tank that we are turning into a sump. This is going to be a simple 3-chamber sump that basically anyone can do. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you a trick to easily cut these glass panels in a straight cut every time. But first, we got to silicone in these baffles, and then we're going to use that trick to seal that hole on the top right. The main things we're going to need here is some blue painter's tape and some silicone. I like the Aquarium Safe Loctite brand from Home Depot, and we're going to buy the small tube for this job, because the big one would just be a waste. If we were to buy the big size that fits in a caulking gun, half that tube would dry up even if we put the cap on. So I always recommend to buy the tube that corresponds to the size job that you're doing, which for this one is the small tube. This last baffle that we're installing right now is going to be our return chamber, so the size of this piece of glass will set the water level in your tank. That also means we only need one piece of glass for this part of the job. Once we've taped our plate in and ran our bead of silicone around all the edges, we're going to use a gloved finger just to smooth out that bead real nice. Once we're sure we've got that first baffle set up exactly where we want it, it's time to move on to the second one. And this section is where things can get a little tricky. This next section is what turns our sump into a 3-section sump, and it requires 2 plates of glass to make it work properly. One for the water to go over, and one for the water to go under. Once we've got our first plate in, we're going to go about sealing the edges just like we did with the other one, including the finger mushing. And then we need to use something to raise that second panel up so that it's above the first one. In this case, we used some foam we had laying around, but you could use some books or whatever. That second panel has to be above the first one so that water can flow over the first panel and then under the second one, so that it enters the second chamber from the bottom. Once we've got our second plate taped in place, we're going to once again go around and silicone all the edges and then do the finger motion. But with this one, you'll notice it's difficult to silicone on the inside part between the 2 pieces of glass. That's okay. At this point, we're really just trying to hold this plate in place as water rushes in between the 2 pieces. Really, you just want to make sure you do the best you can. And now it's time for the fun part. We need to cut a piece of glass to cover that hole in the top right from a previous project. And this little trick I came across online has made it so much easier to cut glass properly. You'll need a little $7 glass cutting tool from Home Depot and some WD-40. We're going to squirt some right along where we plan to cut, and then we're going to score the glass right where we sprayed that WD. Then we're going to use the ball side of the cutting tool to tap on the opposite side of where we scored. That is not a straight cut. Using a straight edge to guide that initial score will give you a straight cut, but for our purposes, this will do just fine. Now with any cut piece of glass, we're going to use some 80 grit sandpaper to sand down the rough edges. And then we're just going to apply a nice thick bead of silicone all the way around that hole that we had drilled from a previous project. And then we're going to stick our piece of glass over that hole and clamp it on with one of those plastic clamps that, again, you can get on Amazon. Once we've got our plastic clamp holding our sheet of glass in place, we're just going to go around the edges and silicone all of that so that dirt and algae and gunk doesn't build up behind this glass. But that initial bead of silicone should be enough to seal this hole. And after 2 days of curing, this is our finished product, our 3-chamber sump. You can see our glass hole is nice and sealed up, and our water will flow in between these 2 glass baffles, through the middle chamber, into the last chamber, and then be returned to our tank. So give us a like and a subscribe if you like this video, and come on back to watch us set this bad boy up.